Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true.
Me no know that. Yeah, whole heap of some of the goods burn up in this, you know. Yeah, be for your friend, what do you know?
8 vendors affected by fire at Ocho Rios Market. 8 vendors at the Ocho Rios Market lost all their goods in a fire that destroyed several stores at the facility on Saturday night. St. Anne Fire Department reported that a call was received shortly before 10 p.m. and that a unit from the Ocho Rios Fire Station responded immediately. Another unit from the St. Anne's Bay Fire Station assisted in the operation. The blaze was extinguished within an hour. When the news team visited the site this morning, a clean-up operation was underway with several vendors assisting workers from the St. Anne Municipal Corporation with the effort. District Officer at the St. Anne Fire Department, Wilton Pettigrew, indicated that the clean-up hampered the department's effort to ascertain the cause of the fire. Meanwhile, a snack shop vendor, who gave her name as Impress Hooks, reported that nothing was saved. "I lost everything. I used to sell liquor, snacks, everything. It was a little snack shop," she reported. She said because of the night curfew, she was unable to leave her home to try to save any of her belongings. "I couldn't tell what happened because we went in curfew hours. We get the call, but we could never run out either because through the police them, we have to be careful, you understand me?" Mayor of St. Anne's Bay, Sydney Stewart, who along with several councillors and officers of the municipal corporation visited the scene Sunday morning amid clean-up operations. They reported that the municipality will be moving urgently to help the vendors get back on their feet. "It was really unfortunate what took place last night. 8 people were affected, 8 shops as I understand, so we've offered the 8 people a temporary space in the car park," Stewart said. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton had this to say to Jamaicans.
Yesterday, March 6, we had a 35.9% positivity rate with some 723 Jamaicans testing positive for the coronavirus. Let that sink in. Let it sink in that that positivity rate means that our hospitals are going to come under pressure, significant pressure. Let it sink in that our public health workers, our nurses, our doctors are going to find it very difficult to cope with those who come in and need medical care. Let it sink in that it means longer waits, it means persons having to suffer for longer periods before they can get a bed, and generally speaking, a health system that is going to experience significant stress and fatigue. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans, the truth is we're not trying hard enough. I accept that the government has a responsibility, but let us be clear, a lot of the spread that is taking place in this country is because too many of us are ignoring the need for personal responsibilities. I just drove through Halfway Tree, and for every one person I saw in the center, only 10% were wearing their mask. That's 1 in 10. That's not good enough. It must sink into all of us that the government alone, the public health system alone, our nurses, our doctors alone, the cabinet of Jamaica alone cannot address this virus and its spread and the consequences that it will have on our people. It must sink in that 723 persons in one day, and more importantly, over 3 out of every 10 persons tested are positive, means that corona is right across the length of our population. It must sink in that if you continue to have the parties, the drink-ups, if you continue to ignore the protocols around gatherings, and you congregate and you don't wear the mask, then the chances of your getting the coronavirus are real, and the probability is increasing. And when you get to the hospital, the chances of your getting a bed is going to become less and less. Jamaicans, people will die. It's as simple as that. I am sorry if some persons are offended by this straight and plain talk, but I believe that it is very important that all of us appreciate and understand the consequences of our action. This is not an attempt to rid government of its responsibilities, contrary to what some may say or some may think. The truth is, we do not have enough policemen or soldiers to police every shop in Jamaica, to police every beach in Jamaica, to look over every single individual in this country. And it is downright unfair for persons to blame our public health officials, our public health team, our doctors and our nurses when they cannot get through at the hospital because they are there because they went to the party that they should not have gone to, or to the beach or the funeral that they shouldn't have congregated at, and have picked up the virus, and then they expect the government or the public health system to solve the problem. And if we don't do it, we get costs. So yes, I am saying 723, March 6, a 35.9% positivity rate. I really hope that will sink in. And it will sink in our consciousness to help us to understand the importance of personal responsibilities. You know, in many countries throughout the world, there is total lockdown when you have spread of this kind. This country, this government took the decision that people have to work. They have to go about their business. It is possible without spreading the virus if they obey the protocols. I say to you, too many of us are not. So 723 is a defining moment for us. And yes, I'm saying, let it sink in. And hopefully, in sinking in, many of us will understand why it is that we need to do better. We will continue to do what we must as a public health system, as a government. We will work hard to provide the beds, to ensure that the doctors are alert, to ensure that you get triaged or looked after when you turn up. But the reality is there's so much and no more of us. There's so many beds and no more beyond a certain point. And truthfully, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to have the overcrowding if we respect the protocols and take personal responsibility. I really hope for all of us, better days ahead. I believe there will be better days ahead. The vaccines are expected to arrive tomorrow and others to come later on. We will now embark on one of the most significant logistics exercises that this country has seen. But it is important that we recognize that until then, we must observe the protocols. We must continue to wear the mask, continue to physical distance, continue to sanitize. Otherwise, we will see worse days ahead, not better days. Let us do the right thing. Thank you.
Tufton calls for strict enforcement of COVID measures by police. A call has been made by Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton for the police to be stricter in the enforcement of the island's COVID-19 protocols. According to Tufton, the blatant disregard of the protocols by some citizens has placed many lives at risk, requiring the need for a stricter enforcement of the rules by the police. At the same time, Tufton said he sympathized with some situations where fatigue has set in among citizens. You know, I can't appreciate why fatigue would set in, and for economic reason, why some persons may feel like they need to go to work. It's been a year of this pandemic and it has been difficult, so I have some empathy for some situations, he said. But other situations have been just blatant disregard for the law and are unnecessary, and indeed have put many lives at risk, stated Tufton. He was speaking after Friday's tour of the Falmouth Field Hospital, which has been completed to accommodate COVID-19 patients. But, while calling for greater enforcement of the COVID rules by the police, Tufton was also empathetic towards the reality they face. The police have it very difficult because they are out there enforcing the law and many are even overwhelmed, so I support them, he elaborated. The fact is, we have to get stricter on the enforcement, and so if it means some persons have to be detained, they have to give support to it because the alternative is a free-for-all, said Tufton. Last Sunday, the government imposed a number of new and extended COVID-19 measures, including an extension of the public gathering limit to 10 persons, which are aimed at containing the spread of the virus in Jamaica. At the time, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the government has been forced to act due to the capacity of the health system being threatened because of the surge in new cases. Additionally, he stressed that some Jamaicans have started to take the pandemic for granted. Amid those restrictions, Jamaicans continue to flaunt the rules. One such example was a party held for self-styled social media sensation Celine Anderson on Thursday night. Videos of the event surfaced on social media showing a large massless crowd which partied well after Ireland's 8 p.m. curfew. There was also no social distancing at the event. This outraged several Jamaicans who expressed disappointment and disgust at the behavior of those in attendance at the event that was being held in clear breach of the island's COVID containment measures. The police are yet to comment on whether they were aware that the party was being held. Whopping 723 new COVID-19 cases, 7 deaths in one day. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has announced the recording of 7 COVID-19 related deaths locally over a 24-hour period up to Saturday afternoon. The deceased are a 73-year-old female from the corporate area, and 85-year-old female similarly from the capital city, a 73-year-old male from the corporate area, a 55-year-old female from St. James, a 62-year-old female from St. James, a 61-year-old female from St. James, and a 78-year-old male from St. James. The ministry is advising of a whopping 723 new cases of the virus over the same 24-hour period, said the batch brought the total number of confirmed positive cases nationally to 26,026. The new cases include 290 males and 409 females, with the sex being investigated in 24 cases. The ages among the new cases range from 7 months to 95 years. Kingston and St. Andrew with 265 cases, St. Catherine with 141, Portland with 58, St. James with 54 led the way among the parishes in terms of the new case count. Over the 24-hour period, a total of 2,640 samples were tested, the ministry reported. And recoveries have increased, with 142 cases being recorded over the one-day period. The ministry also reported that of 271 persons now hospitalized with the virus, 31 are classified as being moderately ill, while 31 are classified as being critically ill. One of 2 students shot dead in St. James dies. 2 students, aged 16 and 13 years, were shot, one fatally, by a gunman who went amok in Peaceview, Albion, St. James on Saturday afternoon. The deceased has been identified as 16-year-old student Omarion Campbell of Peaceview, St. James. The 13-year-old student has been admitted in hospital in critical condition. Reports are that about 5:05 p.m., the 2 students were purchasing items at a shop in Peaceview when a grey motor car was driven up, from which men brandishing handguns alighted. The men opened fire, hitting the 2 teenagers. The police were called and the 2 students were taken to hospital, where Campbell was pronounced dead and the other teen was admitted in a serious but stable condition. No clear motive has so far been established for the shooting. Some schools forcing teachers to do face-to-face classes, said JTA president. Some teachers are up in arms with school administrators who are insisting that they are to turn up for face-to-face classes despite a surge in COVID-19 cases and a directive from the government that work from home be facilitated in the public sector to help curb the spread of the virus on the island. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Jasford Gabriel, raised the concern during an interview on Saturday. He suggested that school administrators, who are anxious to make up for lost time, are now forcing teachers to expose themselves to the virus that has spiraled out of control over the past 5 weeks, leading to a tightening of the health protocols under the Disaster Risk Management Act. As it relates to work-from-home orders, we are imploring our school administrators to be as considerate as possible and not to require our teachers who are not at the exit exam grade levels, that is grades 12, 13, and 11, along with the grade 6, only those teachers should be required to be out teaching in the physical space, Gabriel said. He argued that those teachers who were already teaching from home and who are not involved with the exam groups and are capable of working from home should be allowed to do so. We, the JTA, are getting a lot of complaints about administrators who are calling out teachers to teach from school even though they are not teaching the exam groups, and you would also realize that as a country, we are seeking to treat with a rough period in terms of the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, Gabriel stated. As part of measures announced by Prime Minister Andrew Holness last week Sunday to help curb the spread of the coronavirus and which affect both public and private schools, only students sitting external examinations in grades 6, 11, 12, and 13 are required to until March 22nd, when the measures will be revised. All other students are to access classes via the online and other modalities. As of last Thursday, a work-from-home order, which would apply to the island's 25,000 public school teachers, is being enforced in the public sector, including across ministries, departments, and agencies. The order will remain in force until March 22nd, but permanent secretaries will determine what critical employees are required to be present in the physical workspaces. While the work-from-home order is not mandatory, Holness said where a member of staff has comorbidities or physical challenges, they should be allowed to work from home. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.